While the public has always been fascinated by conspiracy theories, it seems more people are starting to believe them these days, from speculations about JFK's assassination to notions that 9/11 was an inside job.
In his new book, Michael Shermer looks at conspiracy theories, who believes them and why, which ones are real, what we should do about them. It's titled Conspiracy: Why the Rational Believe the Irrational. He'll also be part of the Chicago Humanities Festival this weekend.
And Michael joins us this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
I interviewed an expert at the University of Chicago who did some research, and he said while this crosses all demographics, the running thread was a belief in the supernatural. Do you believe that? Is that consistent with what you see?
The running thread of conspiracism is usually fear of somebody or some agency having more power than they probably do. And most conspiracy theorists are people out of power, even politicians or political parties. Political parties tend to be more conspiratorial after they lose an election. And when they win the election, then their conspiracism goes away. There's a lot of research on who's more or less likely to believe conspiracy theories. Race, for example, is a proxy or a predictor for which conspiracy theories somebody might believe. For example, African Americans are more likely to believe the conspiracy theory about AIDS or crack cocaine being planted in inner cities by the CIA. White Americans are more likely to think the government is conspiring to take away Americans' guns, or FEMA camps for citizens that own guns. And education attenuates conspiracism a little bit, but not by that much. I mean, in fact, most conspiracy theories are fairly complex, and smart, educated people are really good at justifying their conspiratorial beliefs with all kinds of good arguments. And so my thesis in the book really is that it's not irrational to believe conspiracy theories, because in fact surveys show everybody believes at least one. If you give a list of like the top 30 conspiracy theories, everybody ticks at least one of them. And the reason for that is because a lot of conspiracy theories turn out to be true. Right. Watergate and Iran-Contra and, the Pentagon Papers revealing to what extent the government lied about Vietnam.
So how do you decipher which ones are true and which ones aren't? What's the biggest mistake that people make?
The more people that have to be involved in a conspiracy theory, the less likely the conspiracy is true. The more elements that have to come together in just the right way because of chance and randomness and accidents and mistakes people make, the less likely it is to be true. The grander the conspiracy theory, the less likely it is to be true. I mean, most conspiracy theories involve, a profit motive or somebody trying to gain a little bit of power here or there, not world domination or controlling the world economy, that kind of thing, because that's impossible to do. So in a way, it's scarier to think that nobody is in charge rather than that it's the reptilian aliens or the Illuminati or some group like that that's running the world. In fact, nobody's running the world, and that is discombobulating to most of us. So we concoct conspiracy theories to explain the chaos of society.
I think a lot of people might know someone who's deep into a world of conspiracy. I know the internet has moved a lot of this forward in recent years. How do you you've talked about how it's hard to have a conversation or convince someone otherwise, even if you're presenting facts. So what do you do if you have someone that you're close to, or you're having a conversation with someone who's deep into a conspiracy?
Right. And those Thanksgiving and Christmas dinners are coming up where somebody's going to bring up something. Well, so first of all, you have to just ask questions. I call it the Columbo approach, the old detective Fox character who just asked a lot of questions. Like, where'd you hear that? Or that's super interesting. I hadn't heard that. What, who says that's true? What's the evidence for it? That kind of thing. The reason for this is because people hold conspiracy theories usually for some other deeper reason, like Pizzagate, for example. The idea that Hillary was running a secret satanic pedophile cult out of a pizzeria. No one could possibly believe this. But even if you took somebody to the pizzeria and showed them there's no pedophile ring here, it's not like they were going to vote for Hillary anyway, right? They don't. It's the kind of thing Democrats would do, right? So it's a proxy conspiracy theory. It stands in for something else. So you can't just counter the conspiracy theory with facts, because that's not why they hold the conspiracy theory in the first place. So you have to kind of bore down and say, what is it that concerns you? Well, the Democrats are doing this, the Republicans are doing that, or it's a religious conspiracy theory, or it's an economic one, or whatever. You have to find out what's underlying the specific one to see what it is that the person is concerned about, and then address that issue.
Interesting. Well, Michael, we appreciate you joining us. Michael will be part of the Chicago Humanities Festival Saturday. For more, you can visit Chicago Humanities humanities.org. You can also follow Michael on Twitter and check out his website. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Michael.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.